Good evening, everyone. Can delegates be seated and be ready for the preparatory segment plenary? Okay. Delegates, we are now convening the final plenary of this meeting and we'll begin with the preparatory segment. And in this segment, we would go through all our unfinished business, and we will first deal with the report back from the contact groups, and thereafter follow the sequence of the items as presented in the agenda of the meeting, keeping the budget committee for the last item. So first, I would like to give the floor to Secretariat to report on the final nominations. This is agenda item 4A, consideration of the membership of Montreal Protocol bodies for 2025. Pablo, you have.
Thank you, Co-Chair. The Secretariat has received nominations for membership of the Montreal Protocol bodies and selection of also members. So for the Implementation Committee, we have received the following nominations for 2025. As new members from African states, Benin, from Asia Pacific states, Saudi Arabia, from Eastern European states, Montenegro, from Latin American and Caribbean states, the Dominican Republic, for Western European and other states, the Netherlands. We have also been informed of the selection of Martin Hildebrand from the Kingdom of the Netherlands as President of the Committee for 2025, and of Linda Kosgei of Kenya as Vice President and Rapporteur. Other members, Chile, Czechia, Iran, Kenya, and the United States of America, will continue for a second year. Regarding membership in the Executive Committee of the Multilateral Fund, we have received the following selection of members: from African states, Lesotho and Togo; from Asia Pacific states, Bahrain and China; from Latin American and Caribbean states, Argentina and Cuba; from Eastern Europe and Central Asia, a seat that rotates, this time Kyrgyzstan. And as non-Article 5 members, we have received the selection, we have been informed of the selection of Belgium, Canada, Italy, Japan, Lithuania, Sweden, and the United States of America. The Secretariat has also been informed of the selection of Alessandro Giuliano Peru from Italy as chair from non-Article 5 parties, and of Bibi Asimti Awate from Togo as vice chair for 2025. Regarding the open-ended working group, we have been informed of the selection of the co-chairs. Chantel Wellington from Barbados, Article 5 parties, and Annie Gabriel from Australia, non-Article 5 parties. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat. We will include all the nominations in the relevant draft decisions and will forward it to the high-level segment. And I will hand over to my co-chair to begin with the next agenda item.
Thank you, Miruza. We go to agenda item 5B, small Roman 1, emissions of HFC 23. And I would like to ask the co-chairs to report back on that. So it's Austria or Barbados, please. Austria, yes.
Yeah, distinguished audience, dear colleague, the co-conveners of the working group of HFC 23 emissions led the lively discussions in the working group until the last possible moment. As both of the co-conveners, Chantal Wellington from Barbados and Paul Kreinig from Austria, the head of my delegation, had to urgently catch their respective flights home, I'm now here to speak to them on their behalf. On representation of the two co-conveners, I'm extremely pleased to announce that the working group of HFC 23 emissions had succeeded in reaching an agreement. After intensive discussions and consultations between the parties, the CRP was successfully approved and two initial CRPs were successfully merged by the negotiation parties into one final one, entitled Emissions of HFC 23 Emission. The OEWG would therefore like to submit this CRP to the high-level segment for approval. Thank you.
Thank you for reporting back on behalf of the co-chairs who had to catch a plane. So, but luckily, just in time, they could finalize everything. So, please thank them from our side on the good work, and then we can forward CRP 18 to the high-level segment. Any objections to that? Don't see, so thank you for all the good work, and we can forward this to the high-level segment and close this agenda item. Then I would like to go to the next agenda item, 4B, small Roman 2. I would like to ask the co-chairs of the group, Obed or Martijn, Obed from South Africa or Martijn from the Netherlands, to report back. I think the Netherlands is requesting for the floor, so please.
Thank you, dear delegates. Also on behalf of my co-facilitator, Mr. Obed Meringo Baloyi from South Africa, I am pleased to present CRP 4 on revised data reporting forms. Our contact group met on several occasions this week and was able to reach agreement on changes in Forms 3 regarding production generation and on Form 6 regarding emissions of HFC 23. The agreed changes related to issues such as amount stored at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year, transfer to other facilities, unintentional generation, as well as modifications on the instructions, for example on Form 4 relating to destruction, and some other topics in order to give a better guidance on both how and where to report. I would like to thank the parties that participated for the flexibility, especially when we were struggling with rooms. I also would like to thank my co-facilitator for his guidance and the Secretariat for their support, given the challenges when making changes to Excel sheets instead of Word documents. Just before the start of the meeting in plenary, I was informed that the version that's on the internet, on the portal, still contains a few errors that differentiate from the forms we agreed on at the end of the contact group. And I understand that the Secretariat is currently making those changes, but they are not yet on the portal. So, although my initial statement was to ask to forward this CRP to the high-level segment, my proposal now, given that these changes are being done, is for the moment to withhold this CRP and not to forward it to the high-level segment in order to give the parties that had a discussion in the contact group to check them and then to come back later. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for reporting back. I think it would be helpful to hear the amendments orally also from the floor, if that's possible, because then we could, let's say, could easily introduce it. Otherwise, we come back to it later.
Thank you. After the document was posted on the portal, parties approached me as co-convener of this contact group, and they pointed out, maybe it's not complete, that the title in data form 3 at the top of the page does not agree with the title we grouped in the table. So that's a change that needs to be made. Also in form 6, parties discovered some mistakes, but I don't have them all now here because they just approached me a few minutes before my statement. So I think we have to come back on this issue at a later stage. Thank you.
Thank you, and we will come back to this then later on. And indeed, you had some challenges with Room, but it worked out. And thank you for all the good work you did together with your co-convener. Thank you. Then I would like to go to item 4C, LRM, and I would like to ask UK, Morgan, or Chile, Osvaldo, to report back. Chile, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor copresidente. Los puntos clave de la presentación de los Estados Federados de Micronesia sobre la gestión de refrigerantes en el ciclo de vida que se discutió durante esta semana y que llegó a un feliz resultado en la tarde de hoy, resultó en varias solicitudes y recomendaciones clave. El llamado al panel de evaluación tecnológica y económica fue que incluyera información actualizada sobre la gestión de refrigerantes en el ciclo de vida en futuros informes, especialmente incorporando las discusiones de esta reunión. Al Comité Ejecutivo y al Fondo Multilateral se fomentó la continuación de los esfuerzos para mejorar la gestión de refrigerantes, junto con la presentación de información relevante por parte de las partes al Secretariado del Ozono antes del 31 de mayo de 2025. Al Secretariado del Ozono se le solicita compilar y poner a disposición información sobre la gestión de refrigerantes en el ciclo de vida, incluidos los programas de apoyo existentes en su sitio web. Igualmente, se anima a las partes a integrar la gestión de refrigerantes en el ciclo de vida en sus políticas nacionales relacionadas con el Protocolo de Montreal. A las partes del artículo 5 se les alienta específicamente a aplicar lecciones del informe y el taller de 2024 al preparar sus estrategias e implementar sus planes de implementación o de aplicación de Kigali. Además, se hace un llamado para que aprovechen las redes regionales para desarrollar capacidades y compartir conocimientos. En conclusión, señor presidente, el enfoque de estas negociaciones fue mejorar la gestión de los refrigerantes a lo largo de su ciclo de vida, garantizando la seguridad ambiental y el cumplimiento del Protocolo de Montreal. Este esfuerzo colaborativo implica actualizar políticas, compartir recursos e integrar nuevas tecnologías. Quiero felicitar a mi cofacilitadora, la señorita Morgan Simpson del Reino Unido, por su estupendo trabajo durante estas negociaciones y, por supuesto, también quiero agradecer la disposición de todos los participantes del grupo de contacto que permitió una pronta conclusión de las negociaciones de este CRP6 que se encuentra ya en el portal y que pedimos que en su revisión número 1 sea enviado a la reunión de las partes para su adopción final. Muchísimas gracias, señor copresidente.
Thank you, and I also would like to thank you and your co-convener for all the good work you did in the contact group and coming to this decision. And I would like to request the floor to forward this CRP 6 Rev 1 to the high level segment. Is that agreeable? Yes, it's agreeable, so then we can also close this item. Now we give over to Miruza.
Thank you. And let us now go to agenda item 4D on very short-lived substances. And here, report back from the contact group. And may I ask one of the co-chairs, Heidi from Germany or Juan from Argentina, to report back?
Dear colleagues, on behalf of myself and my co-facilitator Juan José Galaeno, I'm happy to inform you that we concluded our discussion about VSLS in the contact group yesterday with an agreement on the final text of the draft decision. We could find compromise on all the items discussed, and I want to thank all delegations for their spirit of compromise. We agreed on additional information on VSLS to be provided by TEEP and SAP in their 2026 assessment reports. And we also agreed to invite parties that have additional measures on the use and/or emissions of VSLS to provide them to the Ozone Secretariat. That is requested to provide them in a compendium. We are asking for the draft decision to be forwarded to the meeting of the parties for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. May I take that the parties agree to forward this to the high-level segment for consideration? Okay, then we will forward this to the high-level segment. And on 4E, agenda item, feedstock users of controlled substances. May I ask one of the co-chairs, Michelle from Canada or Ryan from Malaysia, to report back? You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. On behalf of myself and my co-chair Ryan from Malaysia, we are happy to report that the contact group on the issue of feedstock use of controlled substances has completed its work and has agreed to decision text. The contact group met throughout the week, which was close to observers after the first meeting. And to summarize the decision, it requests relevant parties to continue taking steps to minimize emissions of controlled substances during their production, transportation, distribution, storage, handling, repackaging, and use as feedstock. It also encourages parties to promote the use of practices and technologies taking into account national circumstances in order to reduce emissions of controlled substances in the activities I previously mentioned. It also invites parties to provide certain information related to feedstock use and production of controlled substance. And finally, it requests the Ozone Secretariat to collate and summarize information by OEWG 47. The co-facilitators would want to note that the participants of the contact group have shown tremendous spirit of cooperation and flexibility in reaching this agreement on the decision. So the working group, contact group, I apologize, would suggest for the agreed text to be forwarded to the high-level segment for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we agree to forward this draft decision to the high-level segment? Is there any objection to it? If not, then we will forward it to the high-level segment. And then we will move to agenda item 4F, enhancing the global and regional atmospheric monitoring of substances controlled by the Montreal Protocol. Co-chairs Alessandro from Italy and Liana from Armenia. Yes, Italy. You can take the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Yes, indeed, the contact group finalized the draft decision on enhancing regional atmospheric monitoring of substances controlled by the Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete the ozone layer. There was a very interesting and constructive discussion, and we basically convened to request the Ozone Secretariat in consultation with the Advisory Committee of the GFT to organize activities in view of evaluating the sustainability of potential sites for monitoring regional emissions of controlled substances, with a specific budget allocation for 2025. In addition, inter alia, in the main paragraphs, we also request an later stage the EXCOM to consider funding modality to support a limited number of pilot projects to enhance regional atmospheric monitoring of substances. Madam Co-Chair, this draft decision, which the contact group would like to submit to the high-level segment, goes along with other two draft decision, which is the second one, the recommendation of the ozone research managers of the parties to the Vienna Convention at their 12th meeting, plus the draft decision on the General Trust Fund for financing activities on research and systematic observation relevant to the Vienna Convention. So the last two are for the Vienna Convention. I want to take the opportunity to thank all the parties who have participated in the contact group and a great work of the Secretariat. And so without it, wouldn't be possible to get the conclusion. So once again, thanks from my side on behalf also of my co-chair, Eliana from Armenia. And of course, we want to send it for the high-level segment for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Any objection to forward this draft decision to the high-level segment? Okay, then this will be forwarded to the high-level segment, and with that, I will hand over to my co-chair to continue with to start with the US. Are you requesting?
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. And apologies, I did need to come in on this item because on this last CRP on enhancing the global and regional atmospheric monitoring, we very much support this decision, but unfortunately it posted only seconds ago and we haven't had a chance to review the final text. So if we could just come back to this a little bit later in the session, we would appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we will come back to this agenda item at a later stage. And to start with the Vienna Convention items, I'll hand over to my co-chair.
Thank you, Miruza. And we already got a report back also on 4F, but we opened the agenda item 5A. So I also would, and the CRP was already presented by the convener of the contact group. So my request to the floor, if it's possible, to have CRP 1 Rev 1 to be forwarded to the high level segment. I don't see any objections, so then this CRP on the ozone research managers, I see the US.
Apologies, Mr. Co-Chair, but there's the same issue with this CRP as the last one. I think all three of the CRPs from this contact group have only just posted in the last minute or two, so we do need a little bit of time. Thank you.
And as you indicated, also on 5B of the same issue, we leave it open, we come back to it later. So then I hand over to, before I hand over, I also would like to thank all the good work, the co-chairs of the group on this. So 4G, that's Miruza, please.
Thank you. 4G is on climate-friendly alternatives for metered-dose inhalers, and I look at one of the co-chairs to report back, Henry from Switzerland. Sorry, Georgia.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. We are happy to inform you that we managed to conclude our work the contact group finalized its CRP to be submitted to high-level segment for adoption. We thank all participants of the contact group for their work and their spirit of compromise. I personally would like to thank my co-convener, Mr. Henry Warden-Schimmel, from Switzerland, for his work and kind support. Thank you very much.
Is this is CRP 15, right?
Exactly, yes.
Thank you. So any objection to forward this to the high-level segment? None. So we will forward it to the high-level segment for consideration and adoption. And with that, I will hand over to my co-chair for the next agenda item.
Thank you, Miruza. So we are at agenda item 4H, future availability of halons and their alternatives. And I would like to ask Saudi Arabia, Ali, or USA, Andrew, to report back.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. On behalf of my co-chair, Ali, I'd like to present the CRP that the contact group has produced. It is posted on the website as CRP 13. Thanks to the tremendous effort of compromise and cooperation in the room, including working into the reception time last night, parties have come to agreement on a decision that urges parties to refrain from any destruction of recovered or recycled halons that can be reclaimed for reuse. It encourages parties to ensure that during maintenance and servicing or before dismantling of equipment, halons are recovered for recycling and reclamation. It encourages parties that restrict the import and export of recovered halons beyond Montreal Protocol requirements to reconsider as a matter of urgency restrictions so as to facilitate the transboundary movement and reuse of recovered halons, taking into account requirements of the Basel Convention where applicable. It encourages parties as a matter of urgency to raise awareness of the importance of sustainable management of halons and to avoid the use of halons where other alternatives are available. And it requests the Ozone Secretariat to continue to liaise with relevant international bodies, including the Secretariat of the Basel Convention, about the importance of sustainable management of halons and related elements of the present decision, and to report on the matter to the parties as needed. Mr. Co-Chair, we would recommend that this be forwarded on to the high-level segment for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, and indeed it was very nice surprise at the reception to hear that it was concluded. So thank you both for the very good work you did. And I would like to ask the floor if you're ready to put forward CRP 13 to the high-level segment. I see there is agreement. Then we will put it forward and we can close this agenda item. Then I would like to go to item 4I, the compliance deferral, and I would like to ask the co-chairs of this group to report back. So it's Cornelius from Commission and or Anna Maria Kleinmeier from Micronesia. Micronesia, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Good evening, colleagues. On behalf of my co-convener, Cornelius Ryan, and myself, we are very pleased to share with the parties that we have worked tirelessly this week, meeting up 3 times with the parties, and have achieved successful completion of this agenda item on Article 5, Group 2, compliance deferral. As a result, we have a decision entitled Update to the TEEP Report prepared pursuant to Decision 28.2, Paragraph 5. We would congratulate the parties on their constructive work and their punctual completion as we ended at 1 p.m. on the dot, according to the time we were allotted. They worked constructively together to reach this decision. To summarize the decision, it will request the TEEP to provide in its 2026 quadrennial assessment report an update by sector and substance on the low and lower GWP alternatives to HFCs for use in Article 5 Group 2 parties to prepare for the hydrofluorocarbon freeze. They specify a list of issues that the TEEP will focus on. There's 6 different items, and will allow you to refer to the decision for further detail on the specificity of that request. Therefore, we would like to recommend that this CRP, in its finalized form, be forwarded to the high-level segment. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair.
Thank you for this positive report back, and I would like to thank you and your co-convener for all the good work you've done, and I would like to propose that CRP 16 will be put forward to the high-level segment. Is that agreeable? I see Canada asking for the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. We were having difficulty updating to see if the decision was there, but I'm told that it is there. Could I just get a confirmation from the Secretariat that it is there?
Yes, indeed, it is the right version has been uploaded. That's the confirmation by the Secretariat. So then I would like to ask the room, can we forward CRP 16 to the high-level segment? Then we will do that, and we close this agenda item as well. We will.
Thank you. On agenda item 4J, strengthening Montreal Protocol institutions, including combating illegal trade, I would like to request one of the co-chairs, Jana Chikia or Usra, Fatma Usra from Maldives, to report back.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. On behalf of my co-chair Yana and myself, I would like to report that Contact Group on Strengthening Montreal Protocol Institution managed to reach an agreement. We had 4 sessions of discussion in which the delegates came to consensus on the next steps on how to further strengthen Montreal Protocol institutions. We were able to conclude the work of the Contact Group and reach to a clean text this afternoon. We would like to take this opportunity to thank all parties for their continuous efforts and the flexibility shown to come to an agreement in order to forward the draft decision to the high-level segment for consideration. I would also like to thank my co-chair Yana and Ozone Secretariat for all their support. Thank you, Madam Co-Chair.
Thank you. Is there an objection to forward this draft decision to the high-level segment? If no objection, then we will forward it to the high-level segment for adoption, and we will close this agenda item. And for I, nominations for critical use exemptions for methyl bromide, this was already closed. And to continue with 4K, I will hand over to Ralph.
4K small Roman 1. Unwanted imports of energy inefficient products and equipment. I would like to ask the co-chairs Moran or Baba Drama from Moran from France or Baba Drama from Senegal to report back. I see France is requesting for the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Coprésident. Au nom de mon co-facilitateur Baba du Sénégal et de moi-même, je suis ravie de vous informer que le groupe de contact qui s'est réuni à 2 reprises cette semaine a abouti à une décision. Dans le premier paragraphe, la décision invite les parties qui ont restreint l'importation de produits et d'équipements contenant des substances réglementées, y compris au regard de l'efficacité énergétique, à communiquer ces informations au secrétariat. Dans le deuxième paragraphe, les parties qui disposent de politiques, de normes, y compris de normes minimales de performance énergétique, ou de législation nationale pour les produits et équipements contenant des substances réglementées, mais qui ne conduisent pas à des interdictions d'importation, sont également invités à informer le secrétariat. Enfin, dans un troisième paragraphe, il est demandé au secrétariat de publier sur son site des listes distinctes des informations reçues. Monsieur le coprésident, nous vous demandons de transmettre la décision pour adoption au segment de haut niveau. Nous remercions les parties pour leur implication et leur sens du compromis.
Thank you for your good work and coming very speedily to a decision on this. So I would like to ask the plenary if you can agree to forward CRP 11 Rev 1 to the high level segment. So you can agree, so then we also can close this agenda item. Then I would like to go to 4K Roman 2. Strengthening the enabling environment to enhance energy efficiency in the cooling sector. And I would like to ask the co-chairs Sergio Moreno from Mexico or Alain Wilmot from Belgium to report back. Belgium, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Au nom de mon co-facilitateur et de moi-même, j'ai le plaisir de vous annoncer que nous avons présidé aux travaux du groupe de contact visant à renforcer l'environnement propice à l'amélioration de l'efficacité énergétique dans le secteur du refroidissement, tout en mettant en œuvre l'amendement de Kigali. Notre groupe de contact s'est réuni à 3 reprises, durant lesquelles des échanges ont pu avoir lieu entre différentes délégations, mais nonobstant nos efforts, il m'est malheureusement échu la difficile mission de devoir vous dire que le groupe de contact n'est pas arrivé à la conclusion de ses travaux et que, au vu de l'évolution de la discussion, les 2 pays que sont la Grenade et les États fédéraux de Micronésie, accompagnés de plusieurs autres États insulaires qui sont venus compléter la liste des proposants, ont préféré retirer leur proposition de document afin de pouvoir retravailler celle-ci et éventuellement la soumettre lors d'une réunion ultérieure. C'est donc avec regret que malheureusement nos travaux n'ont pas pu être conclus à cette réunion-ci. Je voudrais donc remercier malgré tout tous les participants pour l'esprit constructif dont ils ont fait preuve durant nos discussions et je souhaite de tout cœur que les différents proposants de cette initiative puisse soumettre un texte qui permettra peut-être d'arriver à une conclusion de nos travaux lors d'une prochaine réunion. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you. Thank you for the report back, and I would like to thank you for your and your co-chair for the good work. And I understand there's no CRP to be forwarded. But I see that I have some parties on my list who would like to speak. It's Grenada, Micronesia, and Cook Islands, and Palau. I'm just waiting if others would like to speak, so please indicate. So this is the list, and then I first would like to give Grenada. I see now Grenada, Micronesia, Cook Islands, Palau, and Mauritius. And then I would like to close the list. So Grenada, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Co-Chair, and thank you to the co-chairs of the contact group. I know this is not maybe a very usual practice to have that many interventions following the report of the contact group, but I think it is necessary for me to take the floor to make this very important intervention. So my delegation would like to first of all extend its heartfelt appreciation to all the parties for their for the most part, very constructive engagement and a thorough examination of this draft decision that we proposed. We are deeply grateful for the time and the expertise and the dedication that went into these discussions, which allowed for a very comprehensive dialogue and insights into the document. However, we express very sincere regret over the final outcome of the engagement that necessitated the withdrawal of the draft decision, a development, Mr. Co-Chair, that left us, the proponents, with a sense of utter disappointment. However, we remain undeterred by these circumstances, and as you know, as islanders, we remain intimately familiar with resilience and the strength to really rebuild no matter what the challenges we face. So in this spirit, we humbly request, through you, Mr. Co-Chair, that energy efficiency considerations be included on the agenda for the next open-ended working group meeting. And we wish to also quickly point out that this request does not imply the re-emergence of a draft decision, but aims to leave open the option to us for this important issue to be further addressed. We are also acknowledged with gratitude the support and the resources that are currently available at the ExCom level. However, as low-volume consuming countries, we must underscore the significant challenges that we face due to the limited available resources and the complexity of accessing them effectively. The need for special consideration for LVCs in these deliberations cannot be overstated. Without sufficient resources and tailored or fit-for-purpose support, our ability to address the Montreal Protocol climate-related challenges and vulnerabilities remains severely constrained, impacting both resilience and sustainability in the increasingly severe environmental threats that we have faced. So we hope that this recognition will guide our ongoing and future discussions. Finally, Mr. Co-Chair, we are committed to considering the outcomes of the upcoming Executive Committee meeting in December, and we hope that the outcome of this meeting will help us to determine any additional actions that we may wish to pursue in this matter. So again, I want to thank the co-chairs for the expert guidance of the contact group, and to also thank the co-proponents of the proposal, namely the Federated States of Micronesia, Fiji, the Cook Islands, Palau, Mauritius, Vanuatu, Tuvalu, and the Marshall Islands, who jointly put forward this proposal. Thank you very much, Mr. Co-Chair, and we hope that all that has been said will be documented in the meeting report, and that our considerations for the OEWG be duly considered. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This will also be reflected in the report, and then I go to Micronesia.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. We're grateful to the co-conveners for their hard work and to all the parties for their efforts and kindness. Mr. Co-Chair, as the co-proponent of the CRP on energy efficiency, we wish to lend our voice in support of the statement made by the distinguished delegate from Grenada in expressing our deep sadness at not having reached an agreement on energy efficiency at this meeting. We came to this meeting looking forward to the chance to co-create with other parties an outcome that could bring value and solutions in a forum that can do more to address climate change than probably any other in the world. Our proposal was far from perfect, but it contained ideas that we believe could have taken us a small step forward, a signal here and to the world. We are not convinced that there was nothing more to be said on energy efficiency to support climate action at this meeting of the parties. We hoped, at the minimum, that our concerns about the difficulty
Please, can the microphone go back to Micronesia? Micronesia, hope it works now.
Me? Okay. We had hoped at the minimum that our concerns about the difficulties we face as small, low-volume consuming countries could find some kind of outcome. But we feel that these concerns were left unanswered. And rather than, yes, we can, what we heard was no, not here, not now. Mr. Co-Chair, we're not discouraged, and we recognize that there was a very heavy workload at this meeting. And so we will continue to bring proposals and work cooperatively with all parties to address the greatest existential challenge of our time. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair.
Thank you. And then I would like to go to Cook Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair, and thank you to the distinguished audience for the time. I'm aware we're running late into the evening. The Cook Islands would like to support previous statements by the distinguished delegations of Grenada and Micronesia, and also wish to express our disappointment in the need to withdraw the CRP, a proposal we had hoped would reflect our shared commitment to addressing pressing issues around cooling demand and energy efficiency, particularly solutions relevant to and brought forward by a number of small island developing states. We had looked forward to seeing a collaborative outcome on this proposal developed in the spirit of partnership. But we respect the diversity of views shared in the contact group and remain committed to working with all parties to find common ground to advancing meaningful, inclusive solutions under the Montreal Protocol into the future. So thank you, Co-Chair.
Then thank you. Then I would like to give the floor to Palau.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. As this is the first time Palau is taking the floor, we would like to take the opportunity to thank the government of Thailand and the Ozone Secretariat for coordinating a wonderful meeting. As we gather here tonight in the final stages of our negotiations for the week, we wish to express our profound disappointment regarding the recent withdrawal of the CRP on energy efficiency. We believe our proposal held the potential to benefit all parties of the protocol, and this moment underscores a critical truth. If we aspire to achieve more, we must be willing to give more. We stand committed to continue our collaborative efforts in this subject, recognizing that our collective success hinges on our ability to engage in open dialogue and mutual support. Let us work together to forge a path forward and that not only addresses our immediate challenges as small island developing states, but also ensures a sustainable future for all. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair.
Thank you. And then I would like to give Mauritius the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Mauritius also would like to echo the statement made by distinguished delegates of Grenada, Federated States of Micronesia, Cook Islands, and Palau. As islanders, we came forward with a proposition to strengthen the enabling environment to enhance energy efficiency in the cooling sector while implementing the Kigali Amendment. However, given that we could not reach a consensus in the limited time we had to finalize the CRP, we deemed it appropriate to withdraw our CRP with disappointment. Nonetheless, Mr. President, we will continue to improve on the ideas with all the parties for eventual submission in the next meeting. Thank you, Co-Chairs.
Thank you. And the list of speakers under this agenda item has been exhausted. And then I would like to close this agenda item and go to the next one. For M, changes in the membership of TEEP. The document Pro 36 ERP2 has been posted, and I would like to ask Canada to report back on that. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. As facilitator of the informal group on changes in the membership of the TEEP, I would like to report on the outcome of the discussions. Earlier this week, the group discussed the TEEP's needs, including consideration of expertise gaps, its matrix of needs, and consideration of expected level of work in the near future. The informal group decided to put forward the following endorsements. The appointment of Billa Moranian of the United States of America as co-chair of the Technology and Economic Assessment Panel for an additional term of 4 years. Paulo Altoe of Brazil as co-chair of the Flexible and Rigid Foam Technical Options Committee for an additional term of 4 years. Adam Chataway of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland as co-chair of the Fire Suppression and Technical Options Committee for an additional term of 4 years. Danielle Verdonik of the United States of America as co-chair of the Fire Suppression Technical Options Committee for an additional term of 4 years. Sueli Carvalho of Brazil as senior experts of the TEEP for an additional term of 2 years. Sukumar Devota of India as senior expert of the TEEP for an additional term of 2 years. Bassam El Assad of Lebanon as a senior expert for a term of 2 years. Ray Gluckman of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland as a senior expert for an additional term of 2 years. Marco Gonzalez of Costa Rica as senior expert for an additional term of 2 years. And Shuku Zhang of China as a senior expert for an additional term of 2 years. I would suggest that these nominations be forwarded to the high-level segment for consideration. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair.
Thank you for reporting back, and also thank you for volunteering to chair this informal group. And I would like to ask if the room is ready to forward Pro 36 CRP2 to the high-level segment. So this will be forwarded, and 4M is closed as well. Then I go to the next agenda item, 4N. There was an informal group also on provisional data, and I would like to hear the report back from that group. Martin Lacroix from Canada, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. The informal group to discuss the issue of submission of provisional data met yesterday morning just before plenary. This provided the opportunity for interested parties to ask further questions to the Secretariat on how this issue came about, how the Secretariat dealt with data submitted as provisional in the past, and how it would be dealing with it moving forward. The Secretariat provided clarifications to questions from parties present and indicated that moving forward, data qualified as provisional would be submitted to the Implementation Committee for its consideration. A number of members of the Implementation Committee, including its president, were present to respond to questions regarding how this data would be treated by the committee. Further discussions in the margins after the meeting helped clarifying remaining uncertainties. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you for reporting back on this informal group, and thank you for the good work. And I see that Armenia requests for the floor. Armenia, please.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Armenia would like to express its gratitude for the opportunity to be engaged in the discussions on this subject matter involving the representatives of the Secretariat, which was very useful to get to the essence of the issue. But since there have been some unclarities remaining, may we ask the Secretariat to reconfirm that the countries that have marked their data as provisional data referring to the baseline years will be forwarded, their cases will be forwarded to the implementation committee following the procedures stipulated by the decisions 13/15 and 15/19. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And the Secretariat will reply. Pablo, please.
Thank you, Co-Chair. As was discussed during the informal group, there are here two different issues. One are cases when requests to change baseline data are received, and those are submitted to the implementation committee under decision 1315 and also 1519. And any request under those decisions will be submitted to the committee as usual. And also the Secretariat, whenever it receives any new case of provisional data or any confirmation of provisional data, the Secretariat will forward this information to the committee for the committee to consider, but not necessarily, it doesn't mean that it's in a case of revision of baseline data, but as another issue that the committee will be informed. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat, for this explanation. I see that Armenia would like to have the floor. Armenia, please.
We apologize for taking the floor again, but still we believe that these two types of cases create unequal conditions and unequal attitude and unequal treatment at the implementation committee. Moreover, the implementation committee hasn't been mandated of how to treat this provisional data referring to the baseline years, and I wonder how the implementation committee will operate on that. There is also another issue which the Armenian delegation is very much concerned with, which is that it still remains unclear to us how to disregard or undo the unfair and discriminatory conditions that were inadvertently created by the Secretariat's approach towards countries with provisional data for baseline years and those without. 5 or 6 parties have taken this easy, privileged path this year, being able to update their baseline years and circumventing the formal process, whereas 11 or 12 parties were referred to strictly follow the procedure as stipulated by the decisions 13/15 and 15/19. Distinguished colleagues, despite the understanding from the members of the implementation committee and due consideration of Armenia's request for the baseline revision submitted this year, no final decision has been taken yet, which places Armenia in the potential non-compliance with the freeze level as it currently stands for the year 2024. Please accept this as an advance notice. Armenia will remain adamant to continue seeking the IMPCOM's non-punitive but rather supportive attitude, which has always been the mandate of this subsidiary body to the Montreal Protocol. Thank you.
Thank you, Armenia. We also noted this your comments, and I think it's also something for the implementation committee to look into. So with that, I would like to close this agenda item because all the other decisions or CRPs have been forwarded to the high level segment already. So 4N is closed. And then I would like to go to agenda item 6, other matters. And first of all, I would like to go to HFC 245CB and isomers. And there were discussions in the corridors with delegations on this. So I would like to hear what happened. And Switzerland, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Since it was Switzerland that suggested to add this item to the agenda, and parties agreed to have discussions in the margins of the meeting, we are happy to provide the following update. Discussions did take place in the margins of the meeting, including parties that intervened on this issue during plenary or approached us otherwise. Those parties reflected together on the content of information document INF 6. This document was issued by the Secretariat previous to this meeting and highlighted a case of a country's potential consumption of HFC 245 CB, which is an isomer of HFC 245 with a global warming potential above 4,000. and which is not listed under Annex F of the Montreal Protocol. In their discussions on the margins, parties considered that the document did not provide enough factual information on the case to form any conclusion. Switzerland would like to express its gratitude to the parties for sharing their views on this matter. Switzerland would like to invite parties to take up again the issue of HFC not listed under Annex F once additional factual information becomes available from parties via the Secretariat or from the assessment panels, for instance, as part of the quadrennial report in response to Decision 29/12. Mr. Co-Chair, we would welcome if this intervention was reflected in the meeting report, and having said this, and unless another party wishes to take the floor, Switzerland can agree to close this agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you, Switzerland, for the report and on the deliberations you had in the corridors on that, and thank you. And my suggestion is to close this agenda item, and then I would like to give the floor to Miruza.
Thank you. Continue with the other matters. Agenda item 6, change in cutoff date in para 17 of decision 28/2. There was a CRP introduced by Egypt, and at that time there was no intervention from other parties in the plenary, and we requested Egypt to discuss, the parties to discuss informally in the margins and come back to the plenary. Therefore, I would like to give the floor to Egypt to inform us on this.
Thank you very much, Madam Co-Chair, and good evening, dear colleagues. Indeed, I would like to inform you about what is to update you about this CRB 9, which is launched at the portal of the Secretariat. I would like to express our gratitude to all members of the African group as we discuss this, the content of this CRB in their agenda in their meeting, and we managed to have support from all colleagues in the African group. However, because of the workload and heavy agenda of this meeting, we managed also to have informal discussion with some party. Unfortunately, we couldn't continue or have a chance to discuss this issue with all other party. Madam Co-Chair, distinguished delegate, this CRB aimed to find a solution for expected challenges that may face this delegate in the implementation of the strategy of Kigali Amendment to phase down HFC. However, we understand that there is other challenges, yeah. Distinguished delegate and Madam Co-Chair, this delegate is not happy because we didn't find time to discuss this CRB during our meeting. But perhaps we would like to reflect this in the report of this meeting, and also would like to continue discussion in or to include this in the agenda of the next open-ended meeting. With this, I thank you.
Thank you, Egypt. I have Bahrain requesting for the floor, and if there are any party who would like to take the floor on this matter, I would like to request to do it so now, so that I would like to close the list. Bahrain, you have the floor.
شكرا سيدتي الرئيسة، وأشكر جمهورية مصر العربية على ورقة المؤتمر التي قدمتها بهذا الشأن ومشاركتنا الهموم التي حقيقة تعيشها في الفترة بعد المصادقة على تعديل كيغالي بسبب موضوع الكت اوف ديت. يتفهم وفد مملكة البحرين المشكلة التي تعاني منها الكثير من الدول الحقيقة، ومنها جمهورية مصر العربية، بسبب آثار جائحة كوفيد-19 والآثار التي خلفتها هذه الجائحة على الكثير من المؤسسات والشركات التي تعمل في المجال الصناعي والمجال التقديمي إلى وسائل التبريد المختلفة. ولكن هناك كما نفهم من ورقة المؤتمر أن هناك مشكلة سوقية حقيقية ستواجه هذه البلدان في وقت لاحق بسبب عدم قدرتها على المنافسة مع الشركات التي أتت أو التي مؤهلة، هي في الحقيقة مؤهلة، وكان وجودها أو وجود تأسيسها قبل موعد التاريخ المحدد الكت اوف ديت. وبالتالي نتطلع أن نولي اهتماما أكثر بمثل هذه المشاكل بهدف تحقيق امتثال هذه الدول، لأن لا نود أن تأتي أي من الدول التي تعاني في مجال التصنيع وفي مجال التي صادقت على تعديل كيغالي في البداية والتزمت بمتطلبات البروتوكول، ولكنها تعاني بسبب عدم أهلية العديد من الشركات لديها بسبب ظروف استثنائية وهي ظروف الجائحة. أود أن هذا الوفد يود أن يعطي فرصة لمزيد من مناقشة هذه الورقة في الاجتماعات القادمة. شكرا سيدتي الرئيسة.
Thank you, Bahrain, and I have Senegal requesting for the floor. Senegal, you have to...
Merci bien, chère madame. La délégation du Sénégal soutient donc, et même le groupe africain comme l'Égypte l'a souligné, ce CRP présenté par l'Égypte. Je ne reviens pas sur les raisons évoquées par Bahreïn en soutien à ce CRP-là, mais moi j'ai un problème sur la procédure, parce que l'Égypte l'a soumis à la première plénière, il n'y a pas eu de discussion. Vous-même, vous avez demandé à ce que l'Égypte discute de cela, mais l'Égypte a discuté de cela dans ses capacités. La question que je pose, pourquoi on n'adopterait pas ce que l'Égypte a proposé? Parce que si quelqu'un est intéressé ou bien n'est pas d'accord avec ce CRP, mais il faut qu'il se manifeste et que l'Égypte sache à qui il faut s'adresser. Mais si personne ne dit plus rien, pourquoi, dans la procédure, on n'adopte pas ce CRP plutôt que de continuer à le rediscuter? Donc, c'est la question que nous posons pour avoir une suite à donner à cela. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Senegal. At the time of the introduction of the CRP, there was no intervention from any other party requesting for the floor, and therefore there was no discussion which was held at the plenary. So our request was to discuss informally, and now that Egypt has requested to include it in the agenda of the next OEWG, I would like to see if there are any objection to this. Okay, with that, we will include this in the next OEWG, and with that, I will close this agenda item. And we will now go back to contact group reporting, and I will start with the financial reports and budgets of the trust funds for the Vienna Convention and Montreal Protocol. And I would like to give the floor to Chair Sebastian.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. The Budget Committee has held several meetings during the week, which have been very constructive. We reviewed the proposed 2025 budgets for the Montreal Protocol Trust Fund and the proposed budgets for 2025, 2026, and 2027 for the Vienna Convention Trust Fund. We just finished our work. For the Vienna Convention, we approved a budget of 911,910 for 2025, 927,730 for 2026, and $1,500,030 for 2027. We approved the contributions to be paid by the parties of 782,000 in 2025, 782,000 in 2026, and 782 in 2027. For the Montreal Protocol, we have approved a budget of and 47,195 for 2025. We authorized the Secretary to draw upon the available cash balance for 2025 an amount of up to 598,900 for specific activities listed in a table of the annex to the present draft decision. We approved the contributions to be paid by the parties in the amount of 4,800,000 37,556 for 2025. I would like to thank everyone who contributed to the Budget Committee for their hard work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your hard work, and we will forward this to the high-level segment for consideration. And I would like to hand over to my co-chair.
Thank you, Miruza. Would like to go to agenda item 4B, small Roman 2, the data reporting HFC 23. And there was, let's say, the request to come back to this, and because there were some errors in the previous CRP for Rev 1 that has been changed, so the correct versions has been uploaded, and I would like to ask the parties if they are ready to forward to that to the high-level segment. I think all parties can do that, so then we can close this agenda item as well.
Coming back to agenda 4F, enhancing global and regional atmospheric monitoring of substances controlled by the Montreal Protocol. Have all the delegates had a chance to look at the CRP? And if there are no objections, can we forward this draft decision to the high-level segment as well? Seeing no objection, we will forward it to the high-level segment. And for the next agenda item, I'll hand over to my co-chair. Sorry, Armenia, you have the floor.
I apologize, Madam Co-Chair, but before, it's just to jump in before you proceed to another agenda item, since we're on agenda item 4. When making an intervention, the Armenian delegation just forgot to mention that we would like to have the intervention be reflected in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. It will be reflected in the report. Yeah, and then I hand over to my co-chair.
Thank you, Miruza. Then agenda item 5A, the ozone research managers, CRP 1 Rev 1. Our party is ready to put forward that to the high-level segment. Yes, they are, so we will do so, and then we also close this agenda item 5A. And then agenda item 5B, the General Trust Fund, CRP 2. Our party is ready to forward that to the high-level segment. Yes, so we will do so and also close this agenda item. And when I'm correct, we went through all the items of the agenda of the preparatory segment. And once again, I would like to thank you all for your cooperation, your hard work, and also that you also your flexibility, because sometimes we had to change rooms and sometimes we had to add to plan some contact groups together. But and also we skipped some plenaries, but that was due to the fact that we would give as much as possible room to all parties to have the discussions in the contact group, and I think that worked very well. And I would like to thank you all also on behalf of my co-chair for all the good work. And now we can continue, so we can close this part and then thank you, and we go further with the high level segment, please.
Good morning. Good morning. Good evening, everyone. So I make you laugh, so you can be relaxed and we can do our work. Good evening, everyone. And we will start now the high-level segment. So
First of all, before we start the segment, I just want to appreciate the hard work of the both co-chairs that done a great job, and all that success because of their hard work, and really you see them running everywhere just to finalize with the Ozone Secretariat that segment of the co-chairs. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your hard work. So now we will turn to agenda item 7 and decide on the date and venue of our next meeting. As you all know, the Secretariat sets the dates for upcoming meeting 3 years in advance. Those dates are then indicated on the Secretariat website. I would now like to give the floor to Kazakhstan to make statement. Kazakhstan, please, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, dear ladies and gentlemen, distinguished delegates, Honorable Mr. President, Ozone Secretariat, colleagues. It's a great honor and privilege to be here today with all of you and share the stage to deliver my humble remarks. On behalf of the government of Republic of Kazakhstan, I would like to express our heartfelt appreciation to the government and people of the Kingdom of Thailand for hosting this significant event. I also want to thank Ozone Secretariat for flawless organization of the conference and the meeting. As a responsible member of the global community and to fulfill its international commitments, Republic of Kazakhstan continues its tireless efforts to achieve our shared goals enshrined in respective treaties on climate and ozone layer protection. Thus, Kazakhstan approved the strategy for achieving carbon neutrality of Kazakhstan until 2060. It includes updated NDCs of Kazakhstan to the global response on climate change. Within them, we set an unconditional goal to reduce greenhouse gas emission by 50% by 2030, as well as a conditional goal to reduce the greenhouse gas emission by 25% by 2030 from the level of 1990. At the national level, all the activities related to ODS is carried out within the framework of the Environmental Code. Republic of Kazakhstan is currently in the process of ratifying the Kigali Amendment. And finally, actually, it's supposed to be a special honor, but due to some technicality, I would like to inform you that currently we're considering to host MOP 37 in Kazakhstan, and the final confirmation will be transmitted to the Ozone Secretariat within the month. I thank you for your time and kind attention.
Thank you very much for Kazakhstan. In light of the intervention that we just heard, we propose that the decision on the date and venue for MOP 37 read as follows. To convey the 37th meeting of the parties to the Montreal Protocol on substance that deplete the ozone layer at the seat of the Secretariat in Nairobi from 3 to 7 November 2025, unless other appropriate arrangements are made by the Secretariat in consultation with the Bureau. In addition, the parties may wish to note the date for the COP14, which will be held back-to-back with MOP 39, and reflect them in the appropriate draft decision to be adopted by the COP under Agenda Item 9. The Ozone Secretariat has informed me that they have booked this venue in Bangkok for the open-ended working group 47 meeting, which will take place from 7 to 11 July 2025, as indicated on the Secretariat website. Thank you very much. Let us now move on the next agenda items. agenda item, sub-item 2E, credential of representatives. Before we move to the adoption of the decision, I invite parties to retain to agenda sub-item 2E on the credential of representative. You will recall that at the opening of the high-level segment, I had indicated that the newly elected Bureau of COP 13 and MOP 36 were to meet this morning to consider the credentials submitted for this conference. The Bureau met this morning as planned and adopt their report on credential, which I will now invite the Secretariat to present. Secretariat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rule 20 of the Rules of Procedure of the meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Vienna Convention and of the meeting of the parties to the Montreal Protocol provides that pending a decision of the meeting upon their credentials, representatives shall be entitled to participate provisionally in the meeting. I am pleased to report to the meeting on the results of the examination by the Bureau of COP 13 and MOP 36 on the credentials submitted by parties to the Secretariat. As of close of business 31 October 2024, a total of 144 parties had registered to participate at the combined COP 13 and MOP 36. Among those parties, 93 had submitted valid credentials. Credentials of 76 of those 93 representatives were originals, while 17 were copies that were accepted on the understanding that the originals would be submitted to the Secretariat as soon as possible. Mr. President, in view of the foregoing and following the practice of our meetings, the COP 13 and MOP 36 Bureau would like to make the following recommendations to the meeting. 1, that the combined meeting approve the credentials of the representatives of the 93 parties whose credentials have been found to be in good order, thereby allowing those representatives to fully participate in the further work of the combined COP 13 MOP 36. 2, that the meeting provisionally approve the participation of the rest, the 41 parties, the other 51 parties, on the understanding that they would forward their credentials to the Secretariat as soon as possible. 3, that the meeting remind all parties attending future meetings of the parties to make their best efforts to submit credentials to the Secretariat on a timely manner as required by the respective rules of procedure. 4, that the meeting approve the report of COP 13 and MOP 36 Bureau, the text of which is being projected on the screens. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the Secretariat for its update and the Bureau of COP 13 and MOP 36 for their consideration of the credential for this meeting and the preparation of the report. Does any party wish to take the floor on this matter? Seeing no requests for the floor, I now invite parties to adopt the report on the credential. It is so decided. No one have anything, so it's decided. Thank you. Seeing no requests for the floor, I now invite, I'm happy to do it. I now hand the floor over to the President of COP 13. What is this? I now hand the floor over to the MOP president, and you have the floor.
Thank you, President. I invite parties to turn to agenda item 6 to hear the report of the co-chairs of the preparatory segment and consideration of the decisions recommended for adoption by COP 13 and MOP 36. So I now invite the co-chairs of the preparatory segment to report to the parties on the outcome of the preparatory segment on all the substantive issues on the agenda. So co-chairs, you have the floor.
Thank you. COP 13 President, MOP 36 President, Madam Executive Secretary of the Ozone Secretariat, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. My co-chair Miruza Mohammed from the Maldives and I are pleased to report on the work of the preparatory segment of the joint meeting of COP 13, MOP 36, highlighting the decisions that parties have agreed to forward to this segment for consideration and adoption. For the Vienna Convention, parties have agreed to forward 3 decisions to the COP. One on the recommendations of the ozone research managers of the parties to the Vienna Convention at the 12th meeting. Conf 13 CRP1 Rev 1. Another on the General Trust Fund for financing activities on research and systemic observations relevant to the Vienna Convention. Conf 13 CRP2. And the decision on financial reports and budget of the trust funds for the Vienna Convention, Conf 13 L2 Pro 36 L2. For the Montreal Protocol, the following decisions have been forwarded for consideration and adoption by MOP 36. Emissions of HFC 23, Pro 36 L2. Life cycle refrigerant management, CRP 6 Rev 1. Changes to the data reporting forms for reporting on HFC 23, CRP 4 Rev 1. Additional information on very short-lived substances, Pro 36 CRP 12. Feedstock uses of controlled substances, Pro 36 CRP 14. Enhancing the global and regional atmospheric monitoring of controlled substances, Pro 36 L2. Climate-friendly alternatives to meter-dosed inhalers, Pro 36 CRP 15. Future availability of halons and their alternatives, CRP 13. Update to the TEEP report prepared pursuant to decision 28/2 para 5 relating to possible compliance deferral for Article 5 Group 2 parties, CRP 16. Further strengthening Montreal Protocol institutions including combating illegal trade, CRP 5 Rev 1. A decision on unwanted imports of energy inefficient products and equipment, CRP 11 Rev 1. Nominations for critical use exemptions for methyl bromide, CRP 3. Changes in the memberships of TEEP, CRP 2. 4 draft decisions forwarded by the Implementation Committee under the non-compliance procedure for the Montreal Protocol, CRP 3, Pro 36/CRP 3. Status of ratification of the Kigali Amendment, Pro 36/L2, and financial reports and budget for the Montreal Protocol on substances, Pro 36/L2. In addition, we are forwarding to you names of the nominees for memberships in the Implementation Committee, the persons elected to be president and vice president of the MCOM, the parties selected to serve on the executive committee of the Multilateral Fund for 2025, and the persons elected to be the chair and vice chair of the EXCOM, and the names of the nominees to serve as our successors as co-chairs of the OEWG. Also on behalf of my co-chair, I would like to congratulate Chantal Wellington from Barbados and Annie Grable from Australia as to become the new OEWG co-chairs, and wish them a lot of success in guiding us the next years and the year afterwards. The names of these persons and parties have been added to the relevant decisions in section 2 of Conf 13 L2 Pro 36 L2. The draft decision on strengthening the enabling environment to enhance energy efficiency in the cooling sector while implementing the Kigali Amendment, which was first introduced at OEWG 46, was withdrawn by the proponents. Mr. President, we had an extremely heavy workload at this meeting, as seen from the number of contact groups that we had, in addition to the budget committee that had to consider 2 budgets and linkages to several agenda items. In the beginning of the preparatory meeting, I talked about the possibility that we could create a Gordian knot. It didn't work out like that, but what worked more out in a way that all the threads that were created were very nicely knitted together. So it means we work together again in a very cooperative manner as we do in this Montreal Protocol family. Despite the extraordinary demands on the parties, we managed to forward 25 decisions to the MOP, including decisions that will enhance regional atmospheric monitoring of substances controlled by the Montreal Protocol. On behalf of my co-chair, I would like to thank all parties for the determination to reach agreement on all the issues. In particular, we would like to thank the co-chairs and co-facilitators who helped us to achieve these agreements. And I also would like to thank the Ozone Secretariat for the dedication and hard work, and also for all the people in this conference center who helped us. It was an honor to serve as co-chairs of the preparatory segment. Thank you, Presidents.
Thank you very much for the co-chair. Now, we will move to the agenda item 9 on the adoption of decision by the COP and its 13 meeting. I invite the rapporteur of MOP 36 to assist us through the presentation of each of the draft decision being tabled for adoption.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Well, parties will note that draft decisions for the consideration and adoption of the Conference of the Parties to the Vienna Convention and its 13th meeting have been compiled in Section 1 of document UNEP/O13/L2 and UNEP/O36/L2 that is available on the meeting portal. With the permission of the President, I will now go through each of the draft decisions and invite the Conference of the Parties to adopt each of one of these decisions. Okay, so we will start with the compilation of draft decisions for adoptions, and it's Vienna Convention draft decisions. We have recommendation of the ozone research managers of the parties to the Vienna Convention at their 12th meeting. Are there any comments for this document?
Adopted.
Oh, it's going very well. So I will move on to the next one related to General Trust Fund for financing activities on research and systemic observations relevant to the Vienna Convention.
Any comments? Adopted.
Great. We move on to financial reports and budgets for the Vienna Convention for the protection of the ozone layer.
No comment.
The next one is related to the 14th meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Vienna Convention. Okay, so having completed the adoption of the decisions, I now turn the floor over back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Claudia, for your assistance. Now I hand over the President of MOP 36 to complete agenda item 10.
Thank you, Mr. President. We now move to agenda item 10, adoption of decisions by the 36th meeting of the parties to the Montreal Protocol. I invite the rapporteur of MOP 36 to continue to assist us through the presentation of each of the draft decisions being tabled for adoption.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Parties will note that the draft decisions for the consideration and adoption of the 36th meeting of the parties to the Montreal Protocol have been compiled in section 2 of document UNEP/O13/L2 and UNEP/O36/L2 that is available on the meeting portal. With the permission of you, Madam President, I will now go through each of the draft decisions and invite the MOP 36 to adopt each of these decisions. We will start with the financial reports and budget for the Montreal Protocol and on substances that deplete the ozone layer.
If there's no questions, granted, or comments, we grant success.
Excellent. We move on to the next one, membership of the Implementation Committee.
If there are no comments or questions, we approve.
Great. We move on to the membership of the Executive Committee of the Multilateral Fund. And before giving you the floor, Madam President, I would like to tell you that a change was made on paragraph 3 of this decision because of a request from the African group to advance another name. So with this in mind,
I note the change. If there are no further questions, we gavel.
good. We move on to co-chairs of the open-ended working group of the parties to the Montreal Protocol.
If there are no further questions or comments, passed.
Great. We move on to emissions of HFC 23.
If there are no questions or comments, we gavel.
Thank you. Now we move on to a very long decision that is called revised data reporting forms.
If there are no further questions or comments, we gavel.
Thank you. The next one is called life cycle refrigerant management.
In the absence of any further questions or comments, we gavel.
Thank you. The next one, it's about additional information on very short-lived substances.
Again, in the absence of any further questions or comments, we gavel.
Thank you. We are moving now to feedstock uses of controlled substances.
If there are no further questions or comments,
great. The next one is about enhancing regional atmospheric monitoring of substances controlled by the Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete the ozone layer.
in the absence of any further questions or comments, we gavel.
Okay, the next one is about developments regarding meter-dosed inhalers with low global warming potential propellants.
In the absence of any further questions or comments, we gavel.
Okay, we move on to measures to support the sustainable management of recovered, recycled, or reclaimed halons.
In the absence of any further questions or comments, we gavel.
Good. We move on to update to the report of the Technology and Economic Assessment Panel prepared based on the decision 28/2, paragraph 5.
If there are no further questions or comments, we gavel.
Thank you. The next one is related to further strengthening Montreal Protocol institutions next steps.
In the absence of any further questions or comments,
Excellent. We move on to avoiding imports of energy inefficient products and equipment containing or relying on controlled substances.
in the absence of any further questions or comments, we gavel.
Good. We move on to critical use exemptions for methyl bromide for 2025.
In the absence of any further questions or comments, we gavel.
The next one is related to changes in the membership of TIAP.
In the absence of any further questions or comments,
Okay, we move on to data and information provided by the parties in accordance with Article 7 of the Montreal Protocol.
if there are no further questions, comments, passed.
Thank you. The next draft decision is related to non-compliance in 2021 with the provisions of the Montreal Protocol governing consumption and production of the controlled substances in Annex C, Group 1, by the Democratic People's Republic of Korea.
If there are no further questions or comments, we gavel.
The next one is related to the status of the establishment of licensing systems under Article 4B, Paragraph 2 bis of the Montreal Protocol.
In the absence of any further questions or comments,
we move on to draft decision related to the request for the revision of baseline data by El Salvador and Honduras.
if there are no further questions or comments, we gavel.
We are at the last two, so one is related to the status of ratification of the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol.
If there are no further questions or comments, we gavel.
And the last decision is related to the 37th meeting of the parties to the Montreal Protocol.
No further questions or comments. We gavel.
Having completed the adoption of the decisions, I now turn the floor over back to you, Madam President.
Thank you so very much, Rapporteur, for assisting us. We now move to agenda item 11, adoption of the report of COP 13 and MOP 36. I invite the Rapporteur of MOP 36 to walk us through the report.
Thank you, Madam President. The report we are just about to adopt is contained in documents UNEP/013/L1, UNEP/36/L1, and UNEP/13-Add1, together with UNEP/36/L1-Add1. Both documents have been posted on the meeting portal. Document L1, which covers discussions from Monday, 28th of October 2024 to Wednesday, 30 October 2024. It's available in all languages, while document L1/add1, which covers discussions on the morning of Tuesday, 31st of October, it's only available in English, as the limited time available to prepare and edit the document did not make translation into other official languages of the United Nations possible. You will note that some sections are yet to be completed. This is in conformity with our practice to adopt reports of proceedings based on the understanding that the President, with the assistance of the Secretariat, will be authorized to complete the report after the session, including the sections that are already reflected in the draft report. I am submitting for adoption on the understanding that today's proceedings are approved and approved changes will be incorporated in the final report. We will go through the report by agenda items and taking a group of paragraphs for adoptions together on each item. I suggest that any participant with minor editorial comments can bring those straight to the Secretariat here at the podium. Immediately after we finish adopting the report, this will be possible without necessarily seeking to make any intervention for the floor. However, if there are specific and extensive corrections in any paragraph of the report, then please first request the floor to read out of those corrections and thereafter provide the text to the Secretariat for proper reflection in the final report of the meeting. We will first take up document L1 and thereafter turn to document L1/add1. As I said, I will turn now to document L1 and we will go through part 1 of this document covering the preparatory segment. Are there any comments on paragraph 1 and 2? I don't see any request. So it's approved. We move on to section 1, opening of the preparatory segment. Are there any comments on paragraphs 3 to 8? I see no request, so it's approved. We move on to section 2, organizational matters, and we start with attendance. And as you can see, we need to complete the paragraphs 9 to 11. Then we move on to adoption of the agenda of the preparatory segment, and we have here paragraphs 12 to 14. Any comments? I see no request. Then we talk about organization of work, and we have here paragraph 15. Any comments? We move to section 3, financial reports and budget of the trust funds for the Vienna Convention and the Montreal Protocol. We are looking now at paragraph 16 to 18. Any comments? I see none. It's adopted, and please take into consideration that paragraph 19 is to be completed. We move to section 4, Montreal Protocol issues, and we start with consideration of the membership of the Montreal Protocol bodies for the next year. And we call membership of the Implementation Committee under the non-compliance procedure for the Montreal Protocol. I'm asking you if you have any comments for paragraph 20. I see no requests. It's approved. You see that paragraph 21 is to be completed. Now we talk about membership of the Executive Committee of the Multilateral Fund for the Implementation of the Montreal Protocol. And we have for this paragraph 22. Any comments? If none, it's approved. You will see that paragraph 23 is to be completed. We talk now about co-chairs of the open-ended working group, and we have paragraph 24 for this. Everybody agreed with the content? I see yes, so it's approved. And paragraph 25, it's about to be completed. Then we move on to hydrofluorocarbon 23 issues, and we have emission of HFC 23 reports by the CEAP and TEAP, and those reports are based on the decision 35/7 paragraph 1 and 2, and we have paragraphs in the report starting from 26 to 59. Are there any comments for these paragraphs? Yes, I have China.
Thank you, Madam President. China would like to propose two specific modifications in paragraph 40 for clarity and accuracy. First, we suggest revising higher than average HFC emission levels to relatively higher HFC emissions. Second, we suggest removing the phrase, the sharp increase in. Our delegation will also submit the revised text to the Secretariat to further ensure accuracy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, China, for your intervention. The Secretariat took note of your request, and it will be reflected in the report. I see no other requests for the floor, so it's adopted. You see that paragraph 60 is still open, so it's going to be completed. Then we move on to potential changes to data reporting forms for reporting on HFC 23. And here we have paragraphs starting with 61 up to 65. Are there any comments? I see no requests, so it's adopted. Paragraph 66 is to be completed, of course. The next one is life cycle refrigerant management, including the outcomes of the workshop on life cycle refrigerant management, decision 35/11. We have here paragraphs starting with 67 up to 73. Are there any comments? I see none. Great. And paragraph 74 is to be completed, of course. The next item is very short-lived substances, and we have two paragraphs here, 75 and 76. Are there any comments? No? Yep. Paragraph 77 is to be completed. We move on to feedstock uses of controlled substances, and we start with paragraph 78 to paragraph 80. Any comments? I see none. Adopt. Paragraph 81 is going to be completed. The next one is enhancing the global and regional atmospheric monitoring of substances controlled by the Montreal Protocol. And we start with paragraph 82 up to paragraph 85. Are there any requests for comment? I see none. Good. Paragraph 86 is going to be completed. Then we move on to climate-friendly alternatives for metered-dose inhalers, and we have three paragraphs here, 87, 88, and 89. Are there any comments? I see none. Excellent. Paragraph 90 is going to be completed. Then we have future availability of halons and their alternatives. We have paragraphs starting with 19.1 to 93. Do we have any comments? No? Great. Paragraph 94 is going to be completed afterwards. We move on to possible compliance deferral for Article 5, Group 2 parties, technology review by TIAP, and we have paragraphs starting with 95 up to 97. Are there any comments? I see none. Paragraph 98 is going to be completed afterward. Then we move on to strengthening Montreal Protocol institutions, including combating illegal trade. Now we start for this topic with paragraph 99 up to 103. Are there any requests for the floor? I see none. Good. I'm concluding on this that paragraph 104 is going to be completed after the meeting. We move on to energy efficiency issues, and we start with unwanted imports of energy inefficient products and equipment. We have paragraphs starting with number 105 up to 109. Are there any comments? I see none. Paragraph 110 is going to be completed. Then we add paragraphs related to strengthening the enabling environment to enhance energy efficiency in the cooling sector. And this paragraph starts with 111 and ends with 118. Do we have any requests for the floor? I don't see any. Paragraph 119 is going to be completed. We move on to nominations for critical use exemptions for methyl bromide for 2025, and we have paragraphs starting with 120 to 128. Do you have any requests for the floor? I don't see any. Next, changes in the membership of TIAP, and we have two paragraphs here, 129 and 130. Do we have any requests for the floor? I don't see any. Paragraph 131 is going to be completed. Then the next is compliance and data reporting issues, the work and recommendations of the implementation committee. We start with paragraph 132, and the last one is 158. So I'm asking if you have any requests for the floor or comments. I don't see any. We move on to status of ratification of the Kigali. Oh, sorry. I have Armenia, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Rapporteur. I would like to get to paragraph 150 and to the very last sentence of this paragraph, just to ensure consistency and accuracy with what has been stated by Armenia in its intervention. This wording shall be replaced. Armenia had not been able to provide all the documentation required. This wording shall be replaced with Armenia was not able to provide the requested additional documents. because of their unavailability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Armenia. And just to be sure that everything is correctly reflected, please provide your modifications to the Secretariat as soon as possible. Thank you. I'm just going to take a look to see if there are any other parties requesting for the floor, and I see none. Good. We move on to status of ratification of the Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol. And here we have paragraphs starting with 159 up to 161. Any requests for the floor? I see none. Now we move on to section 5, Vienna Convention issues. And we start with a report of the 12th meeting of the ozone research managers of the parties to the Vienna Convention. This is reflected in paragraphs starting with 162 up to 167. Are there any requests for the floor? I see none. Paragraph 168 is going to be completed. The next is status of the General Trust Fund for financing activities on research and systematic observations relevant to the Vienna Convention. And for this we have paragraphs starting with 169 up to 177. Comments? I see none. Of course, paragraph 178 is going to be completed. Then we move on to section 6, other matters, and we start with information on HFC 245CB and other isomers not listed in Annex F to the Montreal Protocol. For this, we have paragraphs starting with 179 up to 183. Are there any comments on this? I see Switzerland. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Rapporteur, and thank you to the Secretariat for drafting this excellent report. We just have a comment on paragraph 182. At the beginning of the paragraph, including access to all the information related to the reporting of production and consumption under Article 7 in order to evaluate. So we have those two little modification that we will, of course, send to you in writing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Switzerland. I don't see any other requests for intervention, so it's adopted. Of course, paragraph 184 is going to be completed. Then we move on to change in the cutoff date for eligible capacity indicated in paragraph 17 of decision 28/2. For this, we have two paragraphs, 185 and 186. Are there any comments? I see no request for the floor. Of course, paragraphs starting with 187 to 208 are going to be completed. Now, as I said in my intervention, in the beginning of my intervention, we need to turn to the document UNEP/13/L1/add1 and UNEP/36/L1/add1. It's the part 2 related report and high-level segment that was taking place yesterday and today. And we start with section 1, opening of the high-level segment. And we have paragraphs starting with 1 up to paragraph 3. Are there any comments? I see none. Thank you. We move on to statement by a representative of the United Nations Environment Programme. And for this, we have paragraphs 4 and 5. Any comments? I see none. We move on to statement by the representative of the Government of Thailand in paragraphs 6 and 7. Any comments? I see no requests. We continue with statement by the President of the 12th meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Vienna Convention. This is reflected in paragraphs 8 and 9. Any comments to that? I see no request for the floor. And this is followed by the statement by the President of the 35th meeting of the parties to the Montreal Protocol, and it's reflected in two paragraphs, 10 and 11. Any comments? I don't see any. Thank you. Then we move on to section 2, organizational matters, and for this we have paragraph 12 that is going to be completed. But for election of officer of the 13th meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Vienna Convention, we have paragraph 13. Do you have any comments? I don't see any requests. Thank you. Further, we have elections of officer of the 36th meeting of the parties to the Montreal Protocol. This is reflected in paragraph 14. Any comments? I don't see any requests. Thank you. Then we move to section C, adoption of the agenda of the high-level segment. This is reflected in paragraph 15. Any comments? No comments? Thank you. Section D, organization of work. For this we have paragraph 16. Any comments? No. Section E, credentials. This will be reflected in paragraph 17 that is going to be completed. Section 3, presentations by the assessment panels on the status of their work. We have some paragraphs here. We start with 18 up to 30. Any comments? I don't see any requests for the floor. Thank you. We move on to section 4, report by the chair of the executive committee of the Multilateral Fund for the implementation of the Montreal Protocol on the work of the executive committee. We have two paragraphs here, 31 and 32. Are there any comments? I don't see any. Of course, it's important to mention that paragraphs 33 to 40 are going to be completed. And we have come to the end of approving the meeting report as contained in documents UNEP/13/L1, UNEP/36L1, and UNEP/13L1/Ed1, and UNEP/36L1/Ed1. Thank you very much for your cooperation.
Thank you so very much, Rapporteur of MOP 36, for presenting the report. Let us now move to the last item on our agenda, the closure of the meeting. So we're now at agenda item 12, closure of the meeting. Before we declare the meeting closed, I would like to say a few words. just to say that I am appreciative of the support that we have been given to be president, or that I have been given to be president of the MOP 36 meeting. I believe from all indications that we have had a successful MOP yet again. So I want to thank everyone for your patience. I want to thank you so very much for coming out and for staying. I know staying the course. I know it is difficult. I know at this time persons get fatigued, but by the look and faces of the rooms and the energy I'm feeling here now, I know that we've had a successful meeting down to the very end. So that makes me happy. I wish you guys a very safe travels back, and I hope that all of the progress that we are making and will continue to make, that you would ensure it is implemented at the grassroots level within your countries. I think that is the most important thing, and I would not be doing any justice if I don't stress on that, as I am also a member of parliament, and I understand that, you know, sometimes it is difficult for us to get our citizens and our residents in our countries to understand what it is that we're doing, and to understand, you know, our ambitious targets within the Montreal Protocol. So I want to place on record my thanks and appreciation, and thank you so much for having us here, and thank you so much for ensuring that we have a successful meeting. And I now turn it over to COP President. You have the floor to give your words.
Thank you very much, and I would really appreciate the effort there, and I will not give a long speech because I know you have arrangement for dinner, traveling, calling wife, calling kids, I don't know. So for that one, I just want to say that it's my privilege that I be here sitting in front of you. I join you from long time. I enjoy having this family with me. Believe me, I leave my family at home, but I find another family here that I enjoy. And I always say a helping hand is someone who understands. So thank you very much for understanding. I'm totally happy because we closed all the agenda item was successfully achieved in our presidency with MOP. Thank you very much.
So with that, I now declare the meeting closed. Thank you and safe travels to all.